All right. I think we're live. Awesome. We're here. Welcome. And actually, welcome to the first official podcast recording with my new branding and new podcast. So as of December 1st, many of you know that I launched a podcast, and really what I'm doing is sharing my content on another platform. And you have heard me talking about maximizing your reach in terms of your messaging over and over and over again. And this is an example of how I'm doing that particular tactic. So welcome, dear spa owners. I'm so glad you're here with me for the Spa Business Mastery podcast. And today I want to talk about team leadership. In fact, what I want to talk about specifically is 5 spa manager systems for building strong leadership and teams. And now I know that many of you struggle with leadership, and there's a very, very clear reason why you struggle with leadership. And some of the things you may be struggling with is just, generally feeling insecure about your leadership. Maybe it's you're struggling with staff not following directions despite how many times you've told them. Maybe you are the business feels disorganized. Perhaps you're having a hard time recruiting and hiring and then thus having a really high staff turnover. Maybe you don't know how to utilize your leadership to actually achieve your business goals. All of these issues are part of the friction that spa leaders have. And whether it is you are the manager and leader and running your team, or you actually have a spa manager helping you in your business, these issues are all across the board in the spa industry. And there's a reason for it. What I've noticed is that most spa owners have come up the ranks as service providers. And as such, we have, in our experience, as employees, is we've watched our previous spa owners and how they run their business, how they lead their teams. And the ironic part is that they most likely did the same thing. They came up as service providers, watched their bosses and how they led their teams. And so what we've got is we've got a pretty long history in the spa industry of the blind leading the blind when it comes to leadership. So really it's no surprise that spa owners struggle with leadership, don't know how to organize their leadership, and therefore are struggling with their outcomes in their business and with their teams. So what can we do to make that better? Well, if you've been following me for a while here on Kirsten Foss Coaching, that I beat the drum of systems in your spa business, because what you are looking for ultimately in your business is organizational efficiencies. And what happens as a spa owner, especially coming up the ranks as a service provider, and with that whole situation of the blind leading the blind, you most likely weren't in a facility as an employee that had proper documentation, had proper systems for their teams, had systems for their leadership. And so what you're trying to do is you've got a whole heck of a lot of balls in the air between clients and team and admin and growth initiatives and all that kind of stuff, that when you don't have leadership systems in place, it just feels like a really big mess. So a few years ago, I had a coaching client, a private client. Delia, the blind leading the blind. Yeah, totally true. A few years ago, I had a coaching client that we were working together, and she was very, very pregnant and getting ready to go on mat leave. And while we were working on some other things in her business, we realized in a bit of a panic that if in order for her to go off on maternity leave, even for like 3 weeks, and be able to really focus on her baby and her newborn at the time and the rest of her family, she wasn't feeling very, she wasn't feeling very confident in her spa manager, because her spa manager kept dropping the ball on a lot of things while the owner was still there and available. And so I suggested that if she would like, I would create a spa manager manual for her, with all of the systems and structure and supporting documents in place to set her spa manager up for success, so that while she was away on mat leave, that she could very confidently know that her spa manager had resources in place and systems in place for her to lean on in case she couldn't be there all the time. So what this allowed my client to do is stop micromanaging her spa manager, which freed up her own mental bandwidth. And then it gives the spa manager their own power to implement what needs to be implemented. So what does as far as spa leadership systems, what do they look like? Well, I wanted to share 5 leadership systems that are in the Spa Manager Manual that I've created. Because I think you need at least an outline for what you should be creating in your business, okay? So the first one is a recruiting and hiring system. I hear about this a lot in spa owner groups, their frustrations about recruiting and hiring. And it usually comes out as, there's not enough good candidates, and they don't show up for interviews, and we've hired somebody during the recruiting process, but trying to hire them, they got really flaky. So having a recruiting and hiring system in place helps to mitigate all of those issues in the hiring process. So what is that going to include? It's going to include job descriptions, it's going to include job ads, and it's going to include interview questions, and definitely interview questions for different stages of interviews. You're going to have a screening interview. You want to have an in-person interview. I suggest having a peer interview with a couple of your strong team members, because let me tell you, when a candidate is interviewing, they behave very differently with peers than they do with leadership. So I highly recommend having peer interviews in there. And of course, you're also going to need a hands-on interview so you can experience their touch and see what their actual knowledge is for their skill set. So the recruiting and hiring system is your first leadership system that you want to, the first one that we've got on the list here for your own spa manager manual. The next system are your training and coaching systems. So what that looks like is after they have been hired, you need to have some sort of system in place, documented process, so that every single person who goes through your training program is going through the same program. That means that your team has consistency. You're not, your training program should not be all up in your head, because if you are relying on just recall, we all know that we miss stuff. There's details that get forgotten, and it also leaves processes up to interpretation by the service provider that you're training. So when it is documented, it's very clearly laid out what the process is. Your new team member feels secure because they know what to expect, what's coming, how long it should take, how long before they can get to the more advanced levels of training. Okay, so absolutely need to have your training systems documented. And in that training system is, you kind of almost have to break it up. You have an onboarding system for the first little bit, and then you have a fuller training system. Included in that is your coaching system, ongoing coaching. How will you be supporting your team members after they've gone through their initial training? If you are running them through training, like a couple of days of training, and then you're kind of like wiping your hands off saying, okay, good, I did the training, they're good to go. And then you just put them on the floor and leave them without any other support. That is leaving the situation to have all sorts of issues. So don't think for a minute that if you are hiring and training somebody that you don't need to keep up the ongoing coaching, especially in that first 3 months. So in this system, you want to look at what does that ongoing coaching look like for the first 3 months, from 3 months to 6 months? What does it look like going forward year after year? Number 3 system that you need to have in place as a leadership system is your communication systems. And this gets broken down into daily communication. How are you doing this? Are you doing this all in group text? Or are you using something like Slack where you can actually organize topics in there? I would also definitely recommend that you have some sort of policies around communication, especially when there is information that needs to be communicated that should happen more in person. I find I don't know whether it's this day and age, I'm kind of dating myself, but I find that owners tend to want to have a little bit of a barrier and only communicate by text or email sometimes with their clients when in fact there are some instances where you really should be having a one-on-one, like in-person conversation, because we all know things get taken out of context, and that just leaves more room for error. So in your communication system, if you need a system in there for if there is conflict, how are you going to communicate with your team member? How is a team member to approach you to have a one-on-one if something's going on? Okay, so we've got daily communication. We have to think about what's the system for one-on-one meetings. And those one-on-one meetings can be those meetings where they just need to talk about something. Maybe something's going on in their personal life, or maybe they're having conflict with a client they don't know how to handle, or another team member. What about your monthly team meetings? Those need to be systematized. I think it's quite common for spa owners when they start having team meetings, they get a little bit overwhelmed. They're like, oh my gosh, what do I talk about in a team meeting? So having a system in terms of what are the kind of things that we want to talk about and share with our team members? What do we want to hear from our team members? Like a team meeting or a one-on-one meeting should never be a one-way street. And then under communication systems are year-end reviews. What do those look like for you? What's the process? Just reading your comment, Delia, as my former business coach, I was complimented by every single candidate I interviewed on my hiring process. Nice. Gotta love that. Gotta love that feedback. And, we even notice when we're in our hiring process as a digital company and a coaching company that we hear the same kind of feedback that, oh, wow, I thought I was organized, but you guys are really organized. It absolutely gives them a sense of security that, oh, I am in a business that is organized and the owner knows the direction that they're going in. The fourth system I want to share with you is a progressive coaching system. Now, this has to do with recognition, appreciation, and encouragement, as well as discipline. So this is kind of dovetails with some of those one-on-one meetings that you could have. And this probably comes up more with the disciplinary issues, having a progressive coaching system. What is your system for discipline? This, hands down, is one of the biggest sore spots in the spa industry, is that we tend to hire fast and fire slow. And especially if you don't have a disciplinary process in place. Now, usually there are government, there's mandated processes as far as labor laws about what you can and cannot do. So you definitely need to keep that information, what you are allowed to do with labor laws versus what you want to do together, so that you are staying safe as a business, not getting yourself in trouble. But I see far too many owners feeling insecure in their leadership and not having these disciplinary conversations, like the verbal warning, the written warning, then it's termination. Usually by the time it gets to a verbal warning, you've been watching something with this person and you're kind of just getting the sense that, I don't know if this is going to work out. So by the time you get to a verbal warning, written warning, by the time you get to termination, it's a done deal, okay? And you have to have these difficult conversations. Otherwise, you're compromising your business. So having a progressive coaching system, a disciplinary system in place is critical for protecting your business. Number 5 system as a spa manager is you need an inventory system for obvious reasons. If you don't have an inventory system going on and you're just kind of running by the seat of your pants and just kind of ordering on the fly, it's crazy making. It's absolute crazy making. And it doesn't do anything for your team trust in you if things are constantly, being forgotten to order, or things are on, the shelves are empty, and, your team is trying to sell product and you just can't get your inventory together. Super frustrating. But the other side of that in terms of leadership, if your inventory management is not organized, you could be leaking money like crazy and not even knowing it. All right. If you don't know what your best sellers are, or what your worst sellers are, and create strategies to make that all better, you've just got buckets of money sitting on your shelves. Okay, I wanted to give you a bonus system for spa management, and it actually includes like little subheadings here for systems you also want to include. And the bonus system I want to share with you today are your business operation systems. And this would include payroll system, your KPI reporting and analysis, monthly, quarterly, yearly, not just the analysis, but then strategizing about how to make changes to those. You absolutely need a client retention system, a vendor relationship system, as well as a marketing system. Now, you probably feel like the marketing system is always the one you need to prioritize because you need clients, but I assure you that your marketing system is not the first place to look. Definitely looking at client retention. Okay. Now, what do you do with all this information? So you've got 5 systems I've shared with you: recruiting and hiring, training and coaching, communication, progressive coaching / disciplinary system, inventory management systems, and finally your business operation systems. What do you do with that? Well, you can literally take those headings I just gave you and start building out your own spa manager manual. If you don't have a spa manager already, but your business is growing and eventually you're feeling like, I can't do this all by myself, you will need a spa manager manual. So you may as well just get started with creating it now so that you have it when you're ready, and you have it when a new manager is coming on board, or whether you've brought them up from the ranks of your team. You'll have a documented process for them to follow. That is setting up your business. It's setting up your sales, and it's setting up your team, and it's setting up your leadership team up for success when you have documented systems and processes in place. All right. Now, what if you don't have time to put together a spa manager manual? Well, I sell this spa manager manual as a template. This was agreed with the spa owner that I created it for initially. The agreement was, I said, hey, if I create this manual for you, am I allowed to use this and sell it as a template? And she was like, absolutely. So there is a spa manager template for you with all of these systems in place already, plus 30, I think it's more than 30 internal documents like KPI scorecards, team meeting agenda templates, job descriptions, job ads, how to do yearly reviews, performance reviews. All of that is in there. It's meant to just like literally give you the manual and answer a whole ton of questions you have about how spa leadership is actually supposed to run. So if you are interested in that manual, contact me and I will connect you with it and we'll get that set up. And the other thing I wanted to share with you, if you are not already in my group, Spa Business Mastery, I invite you to join. It's a free support group for spa owners specifically. And you can come over to Facebook, search Spa Business Mastery and ask to join, and we'll see you in the group. Thank you so much for joining me on my first official podcast for Spa Business Mastery, and I will see you in a few weeks.